Hey guys, today I'm going to give you the secret to being a charismatic man. What I think is the definition of charisma and a very simple process to be charismatic with some examples that will highlight the very simple nature of charisma, but because people don't understand what it is and break it down to its basic constituents, they get too complicated with it or they try too hard. When really, at the end of the day, it is very simple. It takes a little bit of courage to do, especially in some circumstances, like when you're talking to a girl that, you just walked up to her, at a party or at a bar or on the street, and you introduce yourself and you tell her that she's pretty. And, that could take some courage right off the bat. And you're very nervous and you don't know what to say. So how are you going to be charismatic? You don't even know what to say next. But on top of that, now you need to make your conversation extra. You have to put something extra on it, right? That can be kind of hard. So to be charismatic, you do have to have some basic social skills, right? If you have trouble even holding a normal conversation, charismatic is something that's your step after. You gotta get used to the basics first, okay? But it might be good for you to understand what charisma will look like in the future once you have a basic grasp of some, conventional social norms, right? You know how to hold. You can walk up to someone and hold a couple minutes of conversation and not be like, okay? Once you're there, that's where this video is gonna help you the most, okay? What is charisma? Some steps to get there, 3 steps in fact. And then some examples of what charisma actually looks like and what a lot of people get wrong in their attempt to be charismatic. And usually it's just they're trying too hard and they're overcomplicating it, okay? So let's start first with the definition of charisma. The best way to describe charisma is putting it next to just normal conversation. Okay. So normal conversation that everyone on earth has, you can think of it as plain white rice, right? It's a staple food across pretty much every culture. It can sustain your life. It's not unhealthy. It's not healthy. It does its job. Okay. That's normal conversation that most people are having all over the world. The conversations that you have with your coworkers, most of the time with your friends, especially when you talk to girls that you don't know and you have that surface level of communication, and it really doesn't go any further than that, except for that occasional time when you're just on it and you're feeling good and you just have that extra sauce. Well, that charisma is that extra sauce, and I want you to make it a consistent staple when you're serving your white rice to people. Okay, I want you to make conversations more interesting. You don't have to change the nature of the conversations, right? This is what a lot of guys think. They think that I need to give her a 4-star Michelin steak, something that Gordon Ramsay fucking made. Or, I need to give her empanadas, or, you're trying so hard to make your interactions with people out of this world, right? And people come up with all sorts of weird solutions to do that. Like early on in the pickup days, do magic tricks. I even came across someone when I was in Romania walking around with a client. I saw some guy walking up and doing magic tricks. I approached him and I went to find out that he was actually doing day game, and his way to do it was through magic tricks, but he was also trying to be a magician. So, okay, in that sense, that's okay. If you're practicing to get good at magic, do magic. But if you're doing it as a crutch to be charismatic, if you're using something as a replacement, you're generally never going to be actually charismatic. You might find yourself in situations where, because you play an instrument, or like I said, magic, or, you're really good at a sport and a girl happens to watch you doing it. These things can make you look attractive, but they're never really a good replacement for charisma, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to sit across from a girl at dinner, at coffee, or when you just first meet her at a party or a club or on the street, if you approach her on the street, and you're going to have a normal conversation, and you're going to be left without any of your special tools. You're just going to have to talk, and your charisma is going to have to show through there. Okay. So I don't want you to think of charisma as a hamburger or as, a steak, anything special. I want you to think of it as normal rice, but you add some salt and a nice spice on top of it. Or it's fried rice, right? You put some oil and you heated it up a little with some pepper, okay? It doesn't require you to douse it in, too much extra shit or completely replace it with another meal. So hopefully that metaphor is sitting with you a little bit, and you're understanding that a little can go a long way to making a simple plate of rice turn into something that you actually enjoy, okay? So now the steps for being charismatic, right? How do you actually add that sauce or add that spice, right? Well, you have to understand that there's different types of charisma, okay? There are spicy sauces and seasonings. There are mild sauces and seasonings and light ones that just change the flavor like salt, right? It's really simple, but it can change an entire dish. Now, you can't put too little and you can't put too much, so you're going to have to do just enough, and that requires experience, okay? But you have different types of charisma, and what charisma you're going to use depends on your personality, right? Some people are, they really like spicy sauces.
Kansas.
Right? These are the people who, maybe some people might find them annoying, or they think that they're assholes because their sense of humor is very dark. It's very crude and crass. Maybe they curse a lot, fucking shit, But when they do it, people do feel attracted to it. It's not for everyone, right? Some people might prefer a more refined taste or a more chill taste, right? But even if you do have that more refined or chilled sauce or seasoning, someone might find it boring and they want some spice to it. Like I was talking to a client yesterday, actually, and he's actually attracted a little bit to what you would call bad bitches, right? Girls who have a little bit of attitude. He showed me a picture. She just has a, scrunchy, angry face, and she's doing the middle finger. Now, I found that a little bit classless, and that's not my type of girl. I've never really been into those types of chicks, but she is that kind of girl, and he likes it, right? She's a little bit ghetto, and that's just what he likes, and that's fine, right? We all have our own tastes. It's not my particular jam. She's cute, but I don't really like it. So one spice and one seasoning is not going to fit for everyone, but you got to find the one that works for you, and the one that works for you is probably going to draw the type of girl who likes that type of seasoning, right? Now, if you want to become a master of all women, well, you're going to have to know how to use every kind of spice, okay? But I think the metaphor has been, clarified enough, and now we can move on to just the step-by-step process, okay? So the first thing when you're in a conversation, how to be charismatic, is you're going to have context, okay? And then once you have the context, you're going to have to know which flavor fits the context. And then you're actually going to have to know how much to put, not too little and not too much. The best way to explain this is with an example, okay? Because that might sound a little bit vague, and I'll go step by step to show you how those steps actually operate in the conversation. So I had a client, and he went to approach a girl, and she happened to be walking her dog. So he walked up and he said, "Hey, excuse me, I wanted to come and tell you that you're really pretty. Standard opening. You should let her know you're interested. I'm a big fan of direct openers. I don't think they make you look like a simp. I think they just show interest and actually show a lot of courage and alpha male qualities, if you want to use that phrasing." And she received it well. She smiled and started talking to him. What he noticed was interesting is she kept staring at me. Right? Outside of the initial good reaction, she was just very starey, okay? And it kind of knocked him off his game because he didn't know how to interpret it, right? Now, I told him, well, unless you're doing something really weird, it's probably a sign of attraction, okay? Because if you've ever talked to girls and they didn't like you, they're not hesitant at all to walk away, okay? Very few women are just going to stay in a situation that they don't feel comfortable with. Anytime I've walked up to a girl and she wasn't interested in talking to me, she would very quickly exit the situation, okay? If you've talked to enough girls, you've had that happen to you. So if that's not the case, she's probably interested, right? So that should have given him a little bit of confidence to try and be charismatic, but he's a little bit newer, right? And so he wasn't quite ready to be charismatic, but I gave him an example of how he could have changed the conversation to make it charismatic. So this is how his conversation went. So I walked up, gave her the compliment, and she, seemed fine with it, but then was staring at him, and it made him kind of uncomfortable. But she had a dog with him, so typical thing when you talk to a girl with a dog or anybody with a dog, be like, "Oh, is it a boy or a girl?" Okay, that's usually first question, or you ask what's his or her name, okay, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's Marley," "Oh, ha, I love dogs, blah blah blah." Cool, end of conversation, right? So what he did is he asked, "Is it a boy or a girl?" And then she said, "I think it was a boy," right? And he said, "Oh, okay," and then the conversation was just dead at that point, right? He had a question, he asked it, she gave an answer, gone. White rice, okay? You're at least saying something. You're not sitting there staring back at her, right, to have her staring contest. I'm sure someone could pull that off and make it, cute and funny. But usually that's just going to look really weird, okay? Just two people staring at each other. What he could have done to make that conversation interesting is first he needs to take it further, right? You don't just let topics die immediately. You try to capitalize on them. But then you need to add some flavor to it. So here's what I would have done in his stead to make it kind of interesting. So walk up, introduce myself, talk to her. Okay, cool. Is it a boy or a girl? A cute dog, boy or girl? Oh, it's a boy. Oh yeah, he's really cute. Okay, then this is where we add the sauce. We add something to it, so I'm adding something, but then it has to have some flavoring to it. But you have to set up the context because your charisma is going to involve a question or a statement of some sort, and you can't just throw out that context out of nowhere. So I'll show you what the charismatic thing would have said, but without the context. So here's how I would have done it. Walk up to the girl. Hey, excuse me. Hi. I saw you over here, and I thought you were really cute, and I wanted to come introduce myself. My name is Hector. Oh, hi, thanks. My name's Sarah. Oh, hi, Sarah. Nice to meet you. You got a cute dog. What's his name? Oh, it's Marley. Oh, nice. Marley, so I'm assuming it's a boy? Yeah, it's a boy. Okay, cool. So, do you like cats or dogs better? Now, you see that question, do you like cats or dogs better? It's, not some grand philosophical thesis, it's not some super complicated question. It's a pretty typical question, right? But it doesn't really make sense in the context, right? It's just kind of coming out of nowhere. It's very autistic, okay? How would I make that question charismatic and fit it into the context of the conversation? Well, that's pretty easy. So let's go back to, I just asked if it's a boy or a girl, or I assume it's a boy. Yeah, it's a boy. Oh, nice. He's really cute. Then what do I say? Well, I can get down and I can start petting him. And then I can say, yeah, I really love dogs, but I've always been a cat kind of guy. I've only owned cats all my life, but I really love dogs, okay? I'm introducing information about myself. I'm introducing an opinion. And then I'm sharing something about me. I've always had cats. Right? So we share something in common. We like pets. Most people like pets outside of fucking psychopaths. Okay. But I'm showing a little bit of difference between her. I'm more of a cat guy and she's more of a dog girl. Okay. So it's introducing more information. Now she might have something to say about that. Maybe she will say, she'll offer information of her own saying, oh yeah, I really like cats too. I actually had a cat before I had him. Or no, I've never really been a cat girl. Or I really like cats. I just, like in the same situation as you, I just always happen to have dogs, but I really like cats too. She'll introduce some conversation. It's not brilliant conversation. We're not going to get PhDs for it, but it's nice. It's some white rice. Okay. But then here's where the charisma comes in. And it's so stupidly simple, but it really does make things interesting. So I'm bending down to pet the cute dog, Marley. And I just said, I'm more of a cat guy. She gives her information. Right? Let's say she says, yeah, she really likes cats too, but she's only ever owned dogs. Then what I do is as I'm petting the dog, here's how I can be charismatic. I can just gently put my hand over the dog's ears, jokingly for a second, and I can put on a little bit of a spa, and I can say, okay, he's not listening, but you've never really had cats. But do you like cats better or do you like dogs better? It's stupid. It's not brilliant, but it's a chance to be charismatic. I'm doing something a little bit out of the ordinary, right? I'm just putting my hand over the dog's ears and I'm pretending like, I'm asking a mother who her favorite child is. I'm making sure the kid doesn't hear if in case he's not the favorite child, okay? And it adds something to the conversation. She would probably laugh, and then she would probably say something like, no, I like dogs better, right? I already probably know the answer. Or she says, you know what? I kind of actually like cats better. My grandma had a cat, and I've never loved a pet like I loved Fluffy, right? But for one reason or another, I've always ended up with dogs. Who the fuck knows? You're going to get all sorts of answers from that question. But the act of jokingly covering the dog's ears, asking a simple question, but then asking it in a fun way with my facial expressions and my voice, right? I'm using the tools that I have naturally to augment what is normal white rice conversation into something that's flavorful, okay? So where in those steps is the charisma? It's the blocking the dog's ears, changing my facial expression from just normal conversation, oh, cute dog, da-da-da-da-da, but now I'm like, okay, he's not listening. You see, I have this little smile, my eyes kind of narrow. I know it sounds super nerdy that I'm like breaking down the physics of my facial expressions, but this is how charisma works. If you don't want to break it down to this level, well, everyone who's charismatic knows this stuff. They just maybe don't know how to explain it because it sounds super fucking nerdy, okay? But if you want to be better with girls and you want to be a better conversationalist, you have to break it down almost on a nerdy level, right? Anyone who's a performer, an actor, a comedian, a dancer, what do? They break down normal movements that everyone does, right? But then add something extra to them, and they understand, why does this movement look good and why does this movement not look good? When a comedian is telling a joke, why does, when I deliver the punchline like this, it lands flat? But then if I do it like this, everyone laughs. What was it? Oh, it was because when I delivered the punchline, I got really quiet. Or I got really loud. It totally depends on the punchline and the context and the energy of the joke that I'm giving. But they study this, right? You see someone on stage giving a 1-hour stand-up, but you don't know that they've spent 100 hours practicing it and going, oh, this tonality was good here, this tonality wasn't good here, and other comedians helping them and saying, no, that one sucks, or no, that one's fucking funny, okay? So you do at some level have to be a little bit nerdy when it comes to the way you express yourself, because nobody just magically is fucking charismatic. It's impossible. You can't magically make charisma happen. And anyone who says it's natural, they just don't have the intelligence or awareness to recognize what they are doing. They just know how to do it. Back to let's just go with another fucking example, okay? What you're doing is you're looking at the context, right? The question that I chose to have, right? Do you like cats or dogs better? I built it up. I didn't just ask it right after the bat. I introduced the context that I'm more of a cat guy. Then I asked her a question, which is pretty rhetorical. She's probably going to say dog anyways, but at least it's something interesting. And then I added more spice to it by changing my facial expressions and changing my voice. I was just having a normal conversation, and then all of a sudden, I was like, hey, here's this funny little question that is really stupid, but it adds a little bit of flavor to the conversation. Okay? That's how charisma works in almost any situation. Normal conversation, spicing and seasoning added on top of it. I had a different client. He was working, and he was helping one of the new girls to do something, okay? And she didn't really know how to do it. I don't know, they were fixing shelves or something. And then he asked her, he said, would you like to do it on your own, or do you want me to show you? So giving her a chance to learn on her own, or hey, I can show you how to do it. And then she chose to do it on her own, but then he was still there to watch and see if she could figure it out. Well, as she started doing it, she actually was figuring it out. And he said, you're hot. And then she suddenly just got flushed, blushing, and nervous and started laughing. And then he started laughing. He didn't actually mean to make it sound sexual like it did. Like, oh, you're hot. He said it very plainly and very off the cuff. He meant it in the way of you're looking for something and someone's like, oh, you're cold. No, you're hot. You're getting closer to it, right? But because of the context of that fact that he's talking to a girl, he unknowingly, just intuitively, was really charismatic and kind of knocked her off, the normal trajectory of the conversation. It's a very innocent professional conversation, and then suddenly she gets all nervous and giggly. And he didn't end up fixing it, right? He's like, I didn't mean to do it, but as soon as I recognized that she got all giggly and nervous in a good way, right? She would have been uncomfortable if, right, you got to pay attention to people's body language. If she went that would have been, oh, I've crossed a professional boundary. Now, he didn't do it intentionally, right? But in this case, she took it well, blushing, smiling, giggling. And he's just like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to take the W. It's a free W. I'll take it. And then he just didn't correct it, laughed, and then continued on. So he was unintentionally charismatic. So what was charismatic about that? He didn't add any special facial expressions or any special vocal tonality. Well, in this case, actually being boring was really useful. Why? Because the word, the comment, the phrasing that he chose was already inherently spicy enough. Okay? If you're talking to a girl and you want to be really sexual, okay? A lot of times when I was dating, I was very bluntly sexual with women, right? We would I wouldn't do it immediately, right? But somewhere in the conversation, I would make sexual comments towards them, okay? And yes, certain girls were like, what the fuck, you're a fucking weirdo, and they didn't like it. But a lot of girls, surprisingly, the majority of women actually took well to it because they liked the fact that I was, you know, courageous enough to actually be so open about the fact that I was sexually attracted to them instead of hiding it, okay? I wouldn't recommend this for like 99.9% of people on this earth, okay? I'm like one of the only guys I've seen pull it off decently well, okay? But it's just an example that when I was being sexual, the way that I did it most of the time is I talked about it like it was the fucking weather. I didn't make it, I didn't go, oh yeah, baby, I would love to bend you over. Like, that's fucking creepy, okay? Because you're trying too hard. You're putting way too much energy into it, okay? Why? Because telling a girl you want to bend her over, right, is already so strong of an expression that you adding an extra performance to it makes it too much. It's too spicy. You put the rice in the sauce in your mouth and you spit it out because it's fucking disgusting. I'll give you an example. I was in Norway at a bar one time, and there was this girl talking to a guy, but she seemed uncomfortable. And I looked at her and I made eye contact and I said kind of softly, do you want me to save you? And she nodded her head and said, yeah. So I put out my hand, grabbed her hand, she came to me, and we started dancing. And then within like a few seconds, I just leaned in and started kissing her, and we started making out. Then the guy who I stole the girl from, like, leaned in my ear and was like, what did he say? He said, oh, I was talking to her. That's not cool, bro. And I just ignored him and like turned her and moved away from him, right? And kept making out with her. So we're already getting a little bit frisky, okay? So the context that you're about to see is understandable, right? I didn't just meet a girl. Hello, I think you're really cute. Hey, you want to go in the bathroom and suck my dick? Okay. But that's what ended up happening. So we started making out, and then of course we started chatting because we need to have a conversation. You know, we're not just fucking animals. So at some point in the conversation, I don't know how long it was, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. She mentioned she had a cat at home. Speaking of fucking cats, right? And I love cats. Okay. And I said to her, I was like, wow, I'd love to see your cat. And I kind of smiled. There was a little bit of sexual energy behind it, but I was like, yeah, I'd love to see your cat. And she looked at me and she called me out. And she was like, oh, yeah, I know what that means. You want to go back to my place. So she was calling me out. I'm pretending to want to see her cat, but really I'm trying to get her home, right? Kind of like the, let's go watch a movie. Let's go watch Netflix, right? Really, he wants to get his dick sucked. Okay, but then I doubled down and I stood up to her challenge. And I said, oh, no, I'm not hiding anything. I do want to fuck you. I just also want to see your cat. So I said it in the most plain voice, no special facial expressions, no, you know, oh, yeah, I actually do want to go fuck your pussy, baby. That's just like fucking weird, right? I just said it very plainly, okay? Like, oh no, I'm not hiding anything. I do want to have sex with you, but I also want to see your cat. Now, the context was there, right? She didn't say the words, you want to fuck my pussy, or, you know, you want me to suck your dick, but the context was obviously there, right? And then I brought it up another level by saying the actual words that a lot of people are afraid to hear, but then didn't add any special vocal changes to be charismatic or any facial expressions or body language. And she was very shocked, right? She was like, wow, you're really direct. And I was like, well, yeah, but you kind of started it, right? And then a few minutes later, we went to the bathroom and she gave me a blowjob in the bathroom. So you got to see that depending on the context, you might need a lot of facial expressions or tonality to make it fun, right? Like with something innocent, like the do you like cats or dogs better, you can add a lot to it because the white rice is very plain, right? But with like a conversation about sex, it's already like a fucking hamburger, okay? Or a steak. Well, a lot of times with steaks, less seasoning is better because it already is a really delicious meal in and of itself, right? Here, I'll give you a little bit of a crass circumstance, okay? And this is how you can pull stuff off, like, this I wouldn't really recommend for a lot of guys, but when I was writing my notes for this article, or for this video, sorry, I used to write a lot of articles, it's still on my mind. For this video, this example kept coming to mind. I was like, should I really share this? Like, most guys, you're not going to do this, okay? But again, it was a way that I pulled off something that might be seen as rude, but it ended up working really well, right? So I'm not recommending it to you guys. I'm just showing you the nature of charisma, okay? I've clarified it enough. If you're stupid, then, you know, you're going to go ahead and do stupid shit. So I was at a bar back in college, and it was a trivia night, and the trivia finished, and we fucking sucked at it. And I got up and I was looking for people to mingle with. So there was a table of girls nearby us, and I went up and I just said, hey girls, how's your night going? You know, how did you do on trivia? And they're like, oh, we did well. And there was a girl at the table, and I could immediately tell she was really interested, right? She started staring at me like this and smiling and leaning in, right? Because I was standing up here, and she's like here, and she's like, yeah. And as I started to talk with them, one of them looked at my table and recognized, oh, hey, you're with, what's his name? And then he's like, oh, hey. And then the tables kind of came together, right? Well, the girl was still sitting there kind of staring at me and talking to me. So I was talking to her and maybe a different girl. And she started giving me shit and teasing me about the trivia. I don't remember what it was. You know, maybe she, you know, told me I was, I sucked or I didn't know anything. Or, you know, it was a little bit raunchy the way she was expressing herself. She was being a little bit fiery. Well, as she started to mouth off, dude, it was like without even thinking of it, just instinctively, I just looked at her, reached over and put my hand over her mouth. And I this is very rude for a lot of people, and a lot of people might not like this, but I said, shut the fuck up. I just told her shut up, and I put my hand over her mouth, right? Now, for a lot of people, you shouldn't do this, and the context needs to be perfect. You got to know what you're doing, right? But for this situation, it was really perfect. Why? Well, I put my hand over her mouth, and as my hand is over her mouth, her eyes get really wide, right? In a good way, like, oh my God. And then, I shit you fucking not, I feel her tongue, like, moving around my hand, and she's just like licking my hand, right? She's not grabbing my hand and taking it off and saying, you know, fuck you, motherfucker, or oh my God, how dare you touch. It was the perfect context. I did it in just the right way, right? I did it very gently, right? I didn't like punch her in the face, right? I just kind of like put my hand right here because she was like, and I just said, shut the fuck up. And she started licking my hand. And then I looked her in the eyes and I said, you're a dirty girl, aren't you? And she fucking lost it. I mean, she just loved me. She was like talking to me even more, really excited, da-da-da. And I think I even told her a few seconds later, like, I'm gonna fuck the shit out of you. I said, give me your phone number. We can, meet up sometime. And then it was she met me at a party how long was it after? I don't know, a couple weeks, a month. And she walked up to me and she's just like, we're going to have sex soon. I can't tonight because I have plans, but we're going to fuck soon. And then randomly some night she was at my fraternity house and we started chatting, and then she came to my room. We had sex. Okay. Now that type of charisma would be considered like spicy charisma. Okay. That's like really, really like, that's a charisma that not a lot of people will know how to pull off. It's just not their personality. Some might perceive it as very rude or misogynistic or sexist, where the fuck ever, right? If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But I'm just trying to show you that there are different types of spices, different types of seasoning. The example with the dog, right, is very simple. The example with, the I want to fuck you, it's a little bit spicier, but there was context. Like, we just made out, so there's some way to do it. And then this one was very like, you got to know exactly what you're doing. It's super spicy, okay? But the recipe is always the same. Look at the context and see what spice fits this context, and then how to actually execute it. And it can't be too little or too much, right? So how much exaggeration, how much vocal changes, how much facial expressions, how much of a performance do you need to put on? A little bit, a medium bit, or a lot bit, okay? So when it's something simple and innocent, you can usually get away with putting more. If you put too much, right? If I put my hand on the dog and I was like, hey, so tell me, do you like cats or dogs? That'd be fucking weird, right? It's like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Is he having a goddamn comedy show, right? You just need a little bit. But there's some times where, let's say you're in a conversation with a girl and you guys are really energetic. I don't know, you're just vibing. There's a lot of connection there. And so you guys are talking really loud. You're reaching across and you're touching her hand. She's like, oh yeah, oh my God, I had a totally similar experience when da-da-da, this happened, this, oh really, okay. And you've had those conversations or those kind of connections with people, I hope. If you haven't, you need to get out more, okay? But I'm sure at some point you've met someone, either a guy in a friendly context or a girl in a romantic and sexual context, where you felt that connection with someone. Well, when you have that level of a context with someone, at this point in the conversation, the energy is really high. Well, to make things charismatic, you need to maybe add a lot of spice and flavor because already the energy is so high. But if you're in a very low energy context and you're having a very calm conversation with someone and you're not, talking really loud and things are really calm and relaxed, well, you just need to add a little bit to it. A little bit of facial expressions, a little bit more of volume, and then whatever you say, it's charismatic. It doesn't need it to be anything special. It can be normal conversation. That's what I'm trying to get home. I'm really trying to make you understand. It's just normal conversation. but it's something and then something added on top of it. That's it. That's the secret trick of fucking charisma that every charismatic person in the world does. They just maybe don't know how to explain it the way I just did with the examples and the step-by-step process. So context, what spice should I use? Is there a context for really spicy shit, right? The girl looking up at me and being really sassy and not, well, okay. Being spicy is going to work because she's being spicy. She's teasing me. She's clearly heavily interested. Okay, I can be a little bit risky here. The girl who I just made out with. Well, okay. And then she's pretty much calling me out for wanting to go home with her. The context is there, right? Now, can there be times where you can raise the stakes out of nowhere? Sure, right? Totally. Sometimes you have to experiment with things, right? You should, be very careful when you're actually touching someone, okay? I would err on the side of safety when it comes to touching people. But when it comes to your words, I mean, you can experiment. You can have fun with it, right? When I was in high school, I was a very, demure, kind of low-key kind of person. But then I went to college, and I was like, you know what? I do have, a darker sense of humor, and I can be kind of offensive. And I'm going to try just, saying what the fuck ever. And I would just be sometimes wildly offensive, right? Making fun of this or making fun of that. Well, it actually entertained a lot of people. Now, was it always done with good intentions in the right way? No, right? Sometimes I was just mean, okay? But at least I understood that sometimes crass behavior can be entertaining, but of course you got to make sure that you're doing it with good intentions and you're not hurting anyone's feelings, okay? I'm never going to recommend that you do that, right? But in all these situations, I used my brain to look at the context, figured out what spice I can add to it, right? What kind of personality do you have? What kind of sense of humor do you have? Are you a direct person? Do you say things very bluntly, or do you use innuendo a lot, right? So like with the girl who was calling me out, she's like, oh, you want to take me home? What could I have done? Well, I could call her out like she's the one who's thinking that way, kind of like make her look like the dirty one, right? I can say, well, I really do want to see your cat, but I mean, if you want to do more stuff, I mean, I'm not going to say no, right? That would be a way to be charismatic as well, right? I'm making her look like the pervy one, right? She's calling me out saying, you're just trying to get me home and get in my pants. And I'm like, well, I want to see your cat, which has to be true, right? And it is true. I fucking love cats. I have 2 cats, right? I've had cats all my life. But I can also take it as an opportunity to turn it around on her and make her look like the one who's talking about sex. Be like, no, I genuinely wanted to see your cat, but hey, I mean, if you want to do all that, we can. I won't say no. That would be really charismatic too, right? It would be very, it's kind of social jiu-jitsu, right? And in game, we call it chase framing. It's when you frame her as the one who's doing the chasing. Whereas she tried to chase frame me. Oh, you're just trying to get me home into my pants and you're using my cat as an excuse. And then I jiu-jitsu it and turn it around and say, no, you're the one trying to do that, right? Now, even though it's true, I want to get in her pants, she's the one who brought it up. Because I was at least elegant enough to not be so crass, but she wanted to be crass. Okay, I guess we'll go to that level. See, there's many different ways to be charismatic depending on your personality, the way that you communicate, and the context. But once you find the context and once you find what way you want to express yourself and be charismatic, then you just have to decide how much flavor do I need to add. And the flavor is very simple. It's your facial expressions, it's your hand gestures, it's your body language, it's your eyes, and it's your voice. So use your tools to your advantage. It doesn't need to be overdone. It doesn't need to be complicated. The conversations, you don't have to ask this particular question because this question is boring and this question is not. Every question, every statement can be charismatic if you follow the step-by-step process that I just gave you. Okay, cool. We are way over time. I am verbose as fucking ever, but I hope that some of you have profited from it if you haven't already clicked off the video. So anyways, Hector Castillo, girlschase.com. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you very soon, and I love you. Go fuck yourself. Bye.